Hi, everybody. Today I have with me Courtney Hanson. Go to her website, check it out. It's called The Sweetest Little Life. She's on Instagram and she has a really great story. Welcome, Courtney.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining me today. The reason I wanted to have you on and I want to do a series with you is first, I think there's a really great connection. And secondly, I love your honesty. And I wanted you to tell the audience your story and how you actually got to where you are today. And I love your honesty and I love the fact that you're so open about everything because I think that that can really help other people heal as well. So I'm going to give you the floor.
So my story kind of starts when I got pregnant with my daughter. I kind of started my spiritual journey. I was actually raised very religious. And so in the back of my mind, when I started my spiritual journey, I almost had this level of guilt around what I believed in and what felt so true to my heart because I had been told that that was wrong. And so I was really scared to kind of follow my heart and dive into spirituality and to what felt right for me. And I had this calling inside to help people, but I was always so scared that I would be judged or that someone would make fun of me. And so I had a pretty traumatic childhood. And as I got older, I kind of just learned to put everything in a tiny box and put it up on the shelf, and just that's where its home was, and I didn't deal with it. And I was really good at being able to disassociate very easily in all of my relationships. If something hurt me, I could just turn it off with a switch. And so when I got pregnant with my youngest son, I had a very, very rough pregnancy, and I had had him 2 months early, and I just couldn't deal with my feelings. In that time, I mean, my oldest had gotten diagnosed with autism, like just so much happened. And so we started the testing for that, and I just couldn't cope. And so I had started drinking, and my husband ended up leaving for 6 months for an academy. And so I had this preemie baby, my spirited little 5-year-old girl, and then my 9-year-old boy that had just been diagnosed with all these things. And so I literally found my answers in a bottle of wine. Like that was my solution. That is how I was able to calm down. That's how I was able to just manage life. And that went on for about a year, and I had severe postpartum, and I just couldn't deal with life. And so I think that God kind of literally was like, let me like thump you upside the head and let you know that like your life is more valuable than this. And so I ended up having an affair, like all the things, basically almost lost everything. And it came to this point that I was just in such a despair for something, to feel something, that I decided that the world would be better off without me and that I was going to drink myself to death. So I kissed my kids. I got a hotel room. I left. I got them a babysitter. My husband was at work. And I went intentionally to go drink myself to death. And in that moment, I will never forget it. I like was on the floor and I was just screaming like, just help, help. If something's out there, help. And I really was just at this level of truly just powerless and being willing to know that, there's so much more out there.
In being drunk, you were drunk on the floor screaming.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, keep going. That's interesting. Well, many of us have been there. Okay. So keep
Yes.
going. We're all probably riveted to, right, this podcast. I am.
So I was just so in despair, and I didn't know where to turn, what to do. I had tried to call a friend. She's like, well, let's get you help. I'm like, I don't want help.
Right,
And
right.
I finally got to a point that I was like, I'm going to lose my life if I don't make some changes. And I knew from a young, young age, I've always been an empath. I've always been super intuitive. And I've always been really affected by other people. And I couldn't figure out why. And so I kind of numbed my energy, to say, because it was just too much for me. Like I was not trained to handle it or to deal with it. And I ended up going to this woman who saved my life. And she is a trauma therapist. And kind of, we did, I mean, every kind of therapy you can imagine. And she made me do a bunch of shadow work, which is obviously not the sexiest of things to do during your spiritual journey, but very necessary. And through that, I was able to realize what my calling was. And I'll never forget it. I was literally sitting on my phone, and I really don't go on Facebook very often because I cannot handle like just the yuckiness of it right now. And so I was scrolling Facebook and these ads kept popping up. And keep in mind, I have never looked up like energy healing or Reiki or any of this. And all these ads kept popping up. And I'm like, what is this? And so I clicked on it, and something inside me, like, just like I had this voice that was like, this is what you're supposed to do. And I was like, huh, okay, I'm going to follow this. And so I did it. And it was when I first got sober, and I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And I realized what my potential was. So I completely shifted my business was very oriented into influencing, and I wrote a book all about how to be a boss babe and a mompreneur's guide to success and all the trending bullshit, and it was just so surface to me. It just didn't feel right. Like I felt like I was being a fraud. Like, and I was so scared to really be honest about my journey because I was in this space of being an educator and being, this woman to these young girls. And I was like, this isn't what I'm supposed to do. Like, I don't want to talk about trending hashtags. I want to talk about like how you can live and be in joy and like how to fix your energy and how to remove blocks. Like, that's what I want to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so when I was able to really come into my truth, if that's what you want to call it, like everything just started happening, like all these opportunities and everything just kept falling into place. When you know that you're on that right path and doors start opening in the right places and closing in the right places. And so I was actually, when all this started, on my second book, and I ended up changing everything, telling my editor, sorry, not going to have that deadline. Like, this isn't me. Like, I want to write about something real. I want to write, about my story. I want to help people. And so, yeah, just being unblocked and able to do that and truly just, I mean, I hate the word leveling up, but leveling up on where I was supposed to be and being able to be in integrity with my true self, that was where like I started to truly feel magical. It was like I wasn't working from ego anymore. Like before, my entire career has been about ego. Like I used to own salons, and then I got into the influencing gig, and it was all just felt so shallow to me. And I knew that there was so much more out there, and I knew that there were people out there that spoke about their things, and I always looked at them as being so brave because I was like, oh my gosh, I can never tell anyone my secrets. They're so bad. When in reality, most of us as women have been through those secrets that are so bad. And as long as we keep sheltering them and hiding them, like light can't get through.
Mhm. We're not bad people. Most
No.
people aren't bad. We just think that we're bad because we were told that we were bad at very young ages. And so we took that. That's how we were disciplined, right? That's how adults discipline children. They tell them that's wrong. That's bad. You were bad because you did X, Y, and Z, especially when we were growing up and so much younger. But I want to back you up for a second. Two things. So I got you on the floor of the hotel room screaming, right? But
Yes.
what made you choose not to drink yourself to death?
Well, I tried.
Okay.
I
And what
definitely.
stopped you? How, I mean, yeah, there's sort of a gap here in the story. I'm
Yes.
curious. Okay.
So the effort was definitely there. So if I get into detail, I continued to drink. And then the next day, my husband had actually taken my children to his mother's because he was like, I'm not going to do this. Like, you need to get help. And he didn't want my kids to, obviously, my kids haven't seen me drunk. So he didn't want my kids to see me drunk. And so I came home and I continued to drink for 5 more days. And I was like, I'm just going to go to bed and not wake up. And so I kept trying to make myself pass out and not wake up because I was too much of a chicken shit to do anything else. And when I got to that point, I'll never forget it. I woke up and something like it was literally like something had hit me upside the head. That's the best way I can describe it. But it was like a jolt. Like I woke up from like a dead sleep, and my whole body was like jolted, and I was like, I have to stop. I have to stop.
Did you
And
feel ever like you had a guide or a guardian or your subconscious mind, or as Carl Jung says, like he had personality number one and number two? Was something speaking to you, or
yeah,
what
so
do you, okay.
I truly believe that I had an archangel that was there for me because I kept having dreams. And they were so vivid, they were so real. And when I jolted, it was like I said, it was literal. I could feel something. And when I was crying on that floor, it was like, and this was such a trip, I could feel something like touching my arm. And like obviously no one was there but me, but I could really feel something on me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't feel this. And it was so overwhelming because you're in so much fear of that unknown until you get, you actually have an understanding of it. And so during that, it was just, that happened for a reason because if I wouldn't have gotten to that place, this is where I think I know going through the pain and being broken is so hard when you're in it. But
Hmm.
from the outside looking in now, I can see that like my life wouldn't have shifted. Like nothing would have changed if nothing would have happened. Like if I wouldn't have gotten to that desperation, despair place that I was in, like
Hmm.
the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, wouldn't have been able to like be like, hey, like we're gonna kind of rearrange this entire situation here.
Exactly. Exactly. When you change, everything changes. And sometimes we have to go so dark. I mean, I don't recommend it for everybody,
I get no.
but right, we have to go so dark and we have to go so deep into our fears. And as you said, feeling as if you were fake or this, it just isn't worth it. I mean, that's huge to kiss your kids and walk away from them. That's huge,
Yeah,
right? And so it is definitely the dark night of the soul and shadow work. Shadow work is, I laugh about the shadow work and I don't laugh about the shadow work because it's so grueling and it's so tedious and it's like pulling black, yucky, sticky, gooey entities off us sometimes that are just made up of energy and beliefs and fear, right? And
yes,
if you, the truth is that when you do shadow work, you have to walk through your fear. It's the valley of the shadow of death, literally. That's
yeah,
what it's like.
yeah. That's what it feels like to a T.
It absolutely does. And I mean, for the audience, if they saw you, you would think, oh my God, she's really pretty. She looks like she's got it all together, and she does now. Well, and she's still trying.
Yeah,
But imagine when you do see people and you think, oh, she's got it all together, but on the inside, she's dying.
yeah,
you know and so you have become a light for other people, not just women. This is not gender specific, but to other people, to show them that sometimes when you are down and out, right, and you are mired down in your own shit and in that swamp, there is this light of hope that comes through because we're willing to drop everything. You were willing to lose your life, and that's why I say I don't recommend that, right? It would be better if we could sort of lay down and figure it out in a different way. But a lot of times we can't because we're holding on so tight to the facade that we have built up over all these years, right?
mm,
And that's a
hmm,
really hard thing to break through and break down, right?
oh, absolutely.
Because did you feel, well, you didn't feel it. You started to say that, you had felt that if you really came out and you were really who Courtney Hanson is, that you wouldn't be accepted.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think there is, and it really comes down to fear in the big scheme of things. But there's that we live in a very judgy, like you need to look a certain way, you need to talk a certain way, you need to be a certain way. And if you're not that way, like you're an outcast, and it's really sad for our children, for everything, and then there's people who get it and have gotten to the other side and have the, oh, moment. But until you get to that moment, it's can be paralyzing. And I just was reading something on the origin of fear, and it was funny because the opposite of fear is love. And it's amazing because when I actually got to the other side and became open and was like, you know what, if someone judges me or whatever. Then I have those 4 emails of people that messaged me and said I saved their life with telling my story. And that makes it all worth it. Like that just in general, if I can show love to the people that need it in this world and be that person for them, like everything was worth it.
If we can teach people to, I mean, I know you live in a really, I love the name of the town that you live in. It's called Cool, and it's in California. But I live in Berkeley, and they call Berkeley Berkeley, and it's not really Berkeley. It's very liberal, that's for sure. But you have a lot of really interesting minds that live here.
Mm,
And, one of the things that I learned was a lot of people in Berkeley, like a lot of people in Berkeley, don't care what you look like. They care about who you are, right? And
hmm
what you can bring, with your life to a conversation and who you are. And in whatever capacity that is, right? It can be a small capacity, just being a nice person. And
Yes.
so, one of the things that I've learned in living in Berkeley is to look past appearances and really be able to embrace and feel the diversity, right? And to be more tolerant. And what I try and impart to my clients when I talk to my clients too is it doesn't matter what somebody looks like. What
Mm,
matters is the connection, and you can feel that energetic connection. And we're so disconnected. And that's what I'm hearing you say. I was so disconnected from my true self
hmm
that I had to drink myself almost to death for the light bulb to come on, and the angelic guides, the divinity to come through me and say, sorry, you're not done. Get back up. We're going to do this again, just without alcohol.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that such an empowering, powerful story. So I know you've written books, and
Yes.
I mean, my hat's off to you, and you're like a motor, which is wonderful.
Thank
And
you.
I'm gonna actually have her help me with some of my social media because it's almost non-existent. But my question is, so when you started, you got into Reiki, you started taking classes,
Yes.
and now you're a Reiki master.
Yes.
Okay. And so you talk a little bit about that and the energy and what you started to understand about that.
Yes. So I actually came to, you hear before you get on, before I got on my journey, I'm not going to say you, I'll say I would hear the word chakra or meridian, or I'd hear these words and I was like, they were just so like, people use them so trendy. And so I was just like, oh, you got to balance your chakras. I had no idea the depth of that. That was only like one tiny smidgen component in this huge, bigger picture of things. And there are so many adverse different aspects to healing and to doing Reiki. And I mean, what works for one person does not necessarily work for the other person. There's, acupressure, acupuncture, tapping, actually energy with your hands, crystals. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And so when I was actually learning all about it, my mind was just like, it was blown. And I realized so much because, in order to be a healer, you have to be healed or you are not going to be very helpful. So I had to go dig really deep through this healing process. And as I was going through this process, I feel like I was able to really realize what areas of me were blocked. And you describe it with that black yucky stuff. And I love that because that's so visual of exactly what it feels like. And when it's removed, especially if you don't even know, I mean, a lot of people come to me and they're like, I feel this way or that way. And they have no idea what is blocked or what's going on. They just know like what is going on kind of in their bodies, but it's still hard to identify. So when we're able to like truly get to that point where we're like, oh, my solar plexus is blocked or oh, my throat's blocked, like, then you can actually aim towards healing that specific area. So you're not afraid to talk. You're not afraid of judgment. You're not afraid of not listening. And I love how you talk, the scientifically with, the second brain and first brain, because it's so accurate. Like we run so much off of our head instead of actually listening to that brain that's like, oh, this probably isn't a good idea. You should probably
Mhm.
go left instead of right.
Mhm. And paying attention to things like, why do I have a kink in my neck? And did I ever think that I can't, that I'm not looking at everything and that's why I can't turn my head? Or it definitely, if it's in your neck, it's related to your throat chakra.
Hmm.
What am I blocking? What am I not saying? And sometimes we're not supposed to say things, right?
Yeah.
We're supposed to look at it and challenge that and challenge ourselves and become aware and either release it privately or change it. So there's that. I think that energy is, well, that's what everything is made up of anyway, is a vibration, right? Which is
Yes.
what we call energy. And I think when we can become aware that we do actually have these energy centers in our body, I mean, it just is. And I know that many people don't embrace that and they don't have to. But when you have a stomach ache, isn't that an energy center?
Yes.
Right? And when you're having a heart attack, that's an energy center. And when you
Hmm.
have a sore throat, that's an energy center. And when you have a headache, that's an energy center. When you're frustrated sexually, that's an energy center. Right? There's all these, and there are more than just those energy centers.
Yes.
But one of the things that I learned about, and this is a really fascinating story, and I never think of this story, but there was a woman that I knew in Santa Barbara that was an ER nurse. She worked in, no, OR, sorry. She worked in surgery.
Okay.
And there was this really great surgeon in Santa Barbara that everybody loved. And he was so different because he believed in the spiritual part of the patient more than he believed in the physical part. Now, check this story out, and I'm probably going to butcher it to death because this is about all I can remember. She was really active. She was, like she would go do amazing hikes. Something like, I don't know, in Mammoth, and she'd go to the top of these peaks, and very active nurse. Had a lot of friends, was always biking, surfing, doing her thing. And she became very depressed one day, really depressed. And she felt like there was something just hanging over her, and that she knew this surgeon because she had worked with him and he saw it. And he said to her, I do work with people. It's very private. I rarely do it. I rarely talk about it, but it's energy work. I see things. And they did a private consultation, and he found another energy from a patient who had passed over
Oh, it clinged on to
attached
her.
to
Oh, yeah.
her. And he removed this entity or energy out of
Mm.
her crown chakra and moved it, and she was better in 3 days. It completely healed her.
Oh my gosh. Yes, that is. I've heard of this happening quite a bit with entities.
Or any kind of energy
Mm-hmm.
attachment, if we have the opening, right? And
Yes.
so if we sort of psychoanalyze a little bit, even though I am not a licensed therapist, if we psychoanalyze and we go back to what you said about your childhood, you had a really rough childhood. Your grandmother and your father raised you. So right away, we have a little bit of a void with a mother energy, right? Okay. And what was happening to you, right? You thought your kids would be better off without you. So you kiss them and you're going to drink them to death. Now, you could have done a lot of other things like 40 Vicodin or something, but the truth is you weren't supposed to,
Yes.
right? You're supposed to
Yes.
be here. And isn't it interesting? You were screaming, what? There's got to be more. And so it tells you that there is a void, but it also tells you, and you said, I had an affair. And I would bet you anything that the affair had nothing to do with your husband, probably nothing to do with your marriage, right? Nothing to do with
No.
your
Yeah.
kids. But what it really had something to do with, and it's okay, it had something to do with something you felt you were missing.
No,
And
exactly.
and so, and typically those relationships are the ones that are really passionate. They're deeply connected. You're absolutely sure this is your twin flame soulmate forever and ever person, right? I mean, it goes on and they get under your skin. And it feels like there's these roots that just go into every single bit of your being from them. right? You're absolutely obsessed with it. I've been there, and trust me, everybody that I talk to pretty much has been there, right? They bring you to your knees, basically.
Mhm.
And so, what really is happening is, and not always, but in this circumstance, it really is talking about you were so ready to heal that void, right?
Yes.
And walking through hell, right, is exactly what it feels like, especially when you have to let go of something that you're so sure is, it feels so right and so good, even though you know it's not. Because when our early beginnings are what they are, and we grow up and we think that this is right. I call it comfortably uncomfortable,
Oh,
right?
I love
And
that.
right, you stay in a shitty relationship because it's
Yes.
comfortably uncomfortable, right? And because it always comes back to us. It always does. Somebody told me one time when somebody was talking about psychic attack, they said to me, psychic attack is only possible if you have that within you that will latch on to what this person is trying to throw at you.
Mhm.
Right? It's sort of
Mhm.
like people that go, oh, Courtney, and whatever they say, who cares what they say anyway? Because everybody's going to say something, right? It's like they have to. But when you realize, like Mother Teresa did, if you helped one person in this life, you did something good. So the people that try and make you out to be whatever, who cares? They're going to do that anyway, because remember, that's what they think about themselves, right? So
Right.
it's like the king and the queen, preaching from their post saying, well, and it's like, yeah, but nobody gives a shit about you, because you know what? We're doing good things over here. And we pray for them,
Mm.
right? And then we let it
Yes.
go. Because I don't want to see them hurt. It's like, well, you got to shrug your shoulders, because I've been there too.
Oh,
I've been the
absolutely.
asshole, right, raising my hand going, and I learned, you know what, just stay silent, shut up, and look within. And that's really the journey. I mean, I had to be really strict with myself, right? Because I can be very passionate about things and very reactive, right? So what do I do with that passion? That passion has to go in something positive. Otherwise, that passion can burn you up and go into something negative, right?
Mm,
So I had
yes.
to train myself to say, wait a second, what's really happening here? Why are you reacting? Some people, really do act like assholes. And when we dig deeper, we see the why. It doesn't mean we accept them being an asshole, but when we recognize the why, we can react differently. And when you change, boom, everything changes,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
So
Yes.
when you changed, and God or whatever I don't care what anybody calls it, it is the same energy, the creative energy came down, that divine came through you, and it said, you got to clean this mommy stuff up, right? And we're going to get
Yes.
you are not drinking alcohol anymore. The hotel off limits. You're going to do this. And it's like,
Exactly.
wow. You just go, wow, there is a grace.
Mm.
And people forget in this time of COVID, especially, so there's so much fear because things are so crazy right now.
Oh,
And
yes. And I feel
right.
like a lot
And
of people are so broken and oh, yes. It's tough.
yes, yes. And so we have to keep cultivating that. We have to trust. And I promise you, the more you get into that, the more you will find it is there to catch you. It will lead you to where you need to be. It'll squeeze you until you get there. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
It'll
yes.
make it happen. And so one of the things, and I want to ask you this question too. This is what I have learned to do. I have learned to say, you know what, fuck this. I am struggling so hard right now. Just show me what you need to show me. What do I need to know? And
Mm-hmm.
I take the time, and I'm willing to hear and let the God force show me and lead me to what I'm supposed to do. And I'll tell you, sometimes I'll ask, and I have to keep on asking, because either I'm too blind to see it, or I'm still blocked and I don't want to see it. But it'll push you, and it'll do exactly what you said. You'll hear energy. You'll hear rose quartz, and you're like, what's that? Right? And then you start to get it. So how did that work for you?
I definitely, I heard something so beautiful once a while ago, and it always has kind of stuck with me. So I used to be a constant prayer. So I was always asking, like, universe, God, I pray that this happens in my life or this happens. And when I heard this, my everything of my mind kind of shifted. So it was prayer is asking, and meditation is listening for the answer. So I had one part of it down to a T, but I wasn't doing the most important part. So for me, it's really making sure that I am at one with my body and that I am listening to it, which I feel like a lot of us, especially, I mean, we live in a really fast paced era. Like everything's social, everything's on the phone, everything's electronic. And that can really block us in a lot of ways. I mean, it's great in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways, it's kind of be dangerous. And so I think it's really taking time for me, at least, just to be outside, be grounded, meditating, and truly listening to the answer. Because sometimes I can very easily fall into ego and want to do what I want to do. And that necessarily is not going to lead me in the right direction. And so when I'm able to do that, and I do a lot of sound therapy too, that just resonates with me. And it's same thing that we were talking about. It's that, I mean, when you first hear about chanting and singing bowls and things like that, people are like, "Oh, it's kind of crazy." But it's really not because, like you said, energy is nothing more than a vibration. Like, that's all it is. So, when we can learn to channel that vibration, our energy really gets to a place that's so healthy and flowing and moving the way it's supposed to move. And I think so many people think, oh, well, it's God's will, or if it's meant to be. And it's like, yeah, but you don't understand. Like, the universe is conspiring to give you everything that you've ever wanted. Like, you just have to know, like we talked about a little bit yesterday, how to shift that perception to get what you want. Like, you can't just be, so with your blinders on constantly walking through life. You have to be open to those possibilities and to listening that, like, your whole world might get shook up and jumbled up in marbles and spit back out to something that you never envisioned for yourself, but it's better.
Mhm. Mhm. The universe gives you what your mind is, what your mindset is. The universe gives you what you are. The
Yeah.
3D world you see is a reflection of your mind. And people get angry and they fight that, but fight away. The truth is that what you feel, you begin to think, and what you think, you produce.
Mm.
It's that simple. It's all energy. Thoughts are energy.
And I love how you say feeling too, because if you think about it, any person that actually trains people to manifest properly or does manifestation, they will tell you the first thing you need to do is feel what it would feel like if that were happening. And
Mhm.
it's because that's where it guides you. And I think a lot of people just think, oh, I'm visualizing, and there's so much more to it than writing it down and visualize. Like, you have to have that feeling deep inside, like you were saying, and it starts with the feeling, which I think is just
Mhm.
magical when that clicks.
And Neville Goddard wrote a really great book called Feeling is the Secret. Neville is like a god when it comes to, manifesting in, I think it was the 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever it was. He's really great. Feeling is the Secret. It's not a very thick book. It's worth getting. But here's the thing. So feeling gives off a vibration, right? And we
Mm.
went through this yesterday, right? And so you start to feel something, and before you can even blink your eyes, your brain has picked it up, and it's releasing electrochemicals, and it's creating your perception of the world. Going back to what you said about Tibetan singing bowls, they can be keyed, right, like to the perfect C, the heart chakra.
Yes.
And working with that will change the vibration. I had this guy in Berkeley, and I bought this heart chakra bowl, and he started to play it for me, and then he started to blow into my chest area as he was playing it, and you could
Mhm.
feel the vibration. Really interesting, right? So what the vibration of what your thinking about, but also the music that you play, the vibration of your home. Do you have the TV on all the time? If you're going to continue to think shitty thoughts, get out in nature. Go walk around your block, and it'll change your vibration. Stop looking at the neighbors you hate across the street. Go a different way. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Do something different, because that's the only way you're going to change your reality. You think it, then you have to act on it. And the universe goes, oh, wow, you're doing something different. We like this. How about this? And they wrap you in that energy, or it wraps you, right, in that
Yes.
energy. So all of those things are important. It doesn't mean you need to sit around saying Om and listening to Tibetan bowl music.
I
What it
know.
means is pay attention, right? Or meditating all the time. It means becoming aware. And that is what meditation does. Prayer, just like you said, it's a form of meditation, but you're saying, please, right? You're asking.
Mm,
And then the meditative part of it is to receive the answer, right?
yes.
That's what it's about. And so in a way, being on the floor in the hotel room, drunk as a skunk, like all of us have been at some point, feeling like I just want to die, right? All of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden it was like, guess what? It goes so low, you've got nothing left, and the light comes through. So
Yes.
you sent a vibration out. You said, help me. And it did. And that's what's so cool about your story. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast with you.
Oh, yeah, it was definitely. I think a lot of times too, we have to be, and I hate to say, I don't like saying broken, but we have to be at that broken state to be willing to have that energy shift and to be able to understand, like, you're not necessarily running the show, like there's other things happening, and like we have to face them and move past them, and we all have that inner tiger in us to do it. And I think that's
Exactly.
what's so amazing is like we have to find that though. We have to find that way. And it's there. Like every single person has it, no matter where they are on their walk of life, no matter how low they feel they are, no matter how hopeless they feel they are. They just have to really learn to channel that and to know, that they are worthy, just like, anyone else on this planet.
hmm And so the series of podcasts that we're going to be doing, and we're going to wrap this up in a second, guys, is exactly what she just talked about. We're going to explain more about how you channel that energy and what channeling actually is, right?
Mm,
It's intention. And we're going to talk about how to get there. It's not going to be something that you won't understand. You'll understand it, right? So
yeah.
you see, we won't be speaking at you. We'll be talking with you. And so, anyway, I really look forward to doing this series with you. Do you want to give everybody your website information so they can check out your Instagram and website? It's really worth it. I love it.
Oh, thank you. Yes, of course. So it's really simple. It's just the sweetestlittlelife.com or on Instagram, the sweetest little life.
And it's really cool, you guys. Check it out. Courtney is really awesome. Thanks, Courtney, for joining me. And I look forward to doing our next podcast with you.